All right, fellas. So look, we get together, we talk about this stuff all the time anyway. So I figured we'd go ahead and record a conversation, let everybody know some of the stuff that we talk about. So man, if y'all are watching this, these are some of the dopest church planners, pastors, worship leaders, bishops, evangelists, all those things. Man, y'all want to introduce yourself? I see a lot of names, but I don't know if the people know who you are. Charlie, you go first.
Yeah, I'm Charlie, pastor of Epiphany in Baltimore.
The RZA.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dave Rosa, pastor of Cruciform Church, planted another coming 2023 here in the Miami area.
Cheers. Talk your talk.
About to talk, bro.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Derek Parks, I pastor a church in Wilmington, Delaware. Yep, called Epiphany Church.
The bishop.
Huh. Presidential over here.
Yes, sir.
Real presidential.
Trevor Chin, executive pastor at Epiphany, Baltimore. Jay Harris, a.k.a. Julie Ooley's, Ville Church,
Yes,
Straight and
sir.
Narrow Clothing,
Yes,
Crazy Jits, NFT,
yes, sir.
10 Babies and Counting, all that.
Pressure.
Yes, sir.
You
They
heard?
count.
And counting, B.
Hey, well, look, fellas, man, we had conversations all the time, and mostly what we talk about is minister in our context. I feel like all of us are in a certain context, and people might not be familiar with that context or what that context means to us personally, and we end up having to make adjustments to what people think we should be doing in church planning, in pastoring, in shepherding, in disciple making. And a lot of that is because, again, our context demands that. So all of us are in what I would say are urban environments and what we would say urban churches. But like, as we all have conversations, the question comes up, like, what is an urban church? Like, I feel like a lot of people have that question. A lot of people are viewing our content. They're asking that question in their heads, but and sometimes they're asking it in our DMs, but they don't have a true definition. So I figured it'd be a good time for us to have a conversation about what an urban church is. So, man, Parks, you actually gave us the question. So, man, kick us off, man. Tell us how you feel about the title urban church or definition behind urban church, or any of that.
Yeah, man, I think multi-layered is probably the best word to use to describe it. Because for many of us, I think if you were to grab each one of our cities, I'm in Wilmington, Delaware, a northeast city, super small, but it's the largest city in the state, so it's the big city. Hood as can be, but at the same time cosmopolitan. Like it's all different types. And man, the church I pastor, I got all types of people, all types of folks from every walk of life. I got all types of folks from every socioeconomic stream. I got folks from, every every cultural standpoint. We got it all. And when I think about urban in our sense, our context, man, the days of urban meaning black, which that's a topic we got to talk about, is like, why was that ever the case in the first place? Urban meaning black. But like the days of that in my city particularly, I mean, I think those are long gone. That idea that urban is black, that's not the case no more. So yeah,
I like that, man. You starting off strong.
Hey, bro.
So urban is not black. That's what you said?
Nah, can't be. I'm saying that it's transitioned from a place where it should have never been. Like the relegation of black folks to urban context is an issue in the first place. Like, why were we all there in the first place? Like, it's a challenge. You know what I'm saying? And we found ourselves there because we weren't able to navigate our circumstances in most cases to go out where other people were going out, suburbs. Like we couldn't find ourselves in those places. And when we were in rural spots, they snatched us up out of there. Like it's so many complexities to it. But I think it's transitioning from urban being black. And then it's the conversation about what type of black, but I'm not touching that. Somebody else could touch that.
Yo, jump in, man. How y'all feel about that? He said a lot, man. I think that the thing that sticks out to me is that strong statement that urban is traditionally looked at as black, but he's saying like, man, cities are changing. If we're going by the definition of what urban is, then we can't just relegate it to black. And then even our black, historically black neighborhoods, traditional black neighborhoods are becoming more and more diverse. So urban can't mean black. I don't know if I agree completely, but I'm just here to keep the conversation going.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. For me, I think urban has always had at least two meanings. In the way that I've seen it. When we talk about urban, we can talk about urbanization. When we talk about urban, we talk about that culture birthed from the hip hop culture, all that kind of stuff. I think, and then I think of ghettos, which is different for me than just the urban center or the urban community. And so when we think about urbanization, I think there's always been a reality that urbanization speaks to where there's what is it that they say diversity, density, and diversity, all that kind of thing. It's the environment where different people live together, bringing their different values, norms, cultures, and creating complexity, right? And the kind of complexity that gives birth to new cultural ideas and norms, et cetera. So I think when we talk about urbanization or the urban community, I think that's always got to be a part of it. But then I think that there's a reality that that there's that second framework for urban, where we talk about the Black community or the community of color. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, early 90s, all that kind of thing. Puerto Ricans and Blacks together in Brooklyn, New York, and our community, our culture was built off of the hip hop culture. In a very real way, I'm more urban than I am Puerto Rican, right? My family's Puerto Rican, but I'm more urban than Puerto Rican. My culture and my heart beats more to the beat of hip hop than it does to salsa, merengue, or whatever it is, right? And so there's that reality of urban. I think as we talk about planting urban churches, I'm just going to throw this out there. When we talk about planting urban churches, or when I talk about planting urban churches, I'm talking about planting the church for me and people like me. I'm talking about planting the church, me planting the church and leading that and shaping that for people that come from environments like the environment that I've come from, people that are marginalized often, but not just marginalized, but people that are extremely gifted, that through the grit and the struggle of a more impoverished community, we've had to learn to be more resourceful. So when we talk about Latinos, we found out recently that we do much more with much less in terms of resources for planting churches and mission, right? And I think that's the reality for our urban community at large. So again, just my quick perspective is that when I talk about urban church planting, I'm talking about me planting a church that brings my cultural reality and shapes things by that for people. It's FUBU ministry for people like me. That's where I'm at with that.
Yo, if I could jump in there, because Dave, you said you tied a lot of what I even wanted to say, but in New York being one of them, because it was like early 70s in New York, on New York radio. Early 70s is where urban, the concept of urban contemporary as it pertains to a musical genre. So it's culture, it's hip hop culture. It was a talk about black people making music. You know what I mean? And they got shortened just to be urban. But like I think it started as using that in synonymous with hip hop culture, and I think that that's kind of the direction. It's not just a music style. It evolved into a culture. The culture is clothing, language. Now, a lot of it's even getting muddy now because of social media and stuff like that. But from where it started to where it is, I think is yeah. I think we're way off from where on the radio in the '70s when a radio host in New York was talking about hip hop culture, where we are now as it pertains to urban contemporary.
But man, you're bringing up a really good point though, because like, so you're saying what you're saying is the origin of the word urban is specifically black and brown. Like it's specifically
even musical style. Like it was specifically urban contemporary as a music style as it pertained to what style of music was playing on the radio station, whether they were trying to get on.
But it
was coined for that.
That's what I'm saying. It's intrinsically tied to black and brown people. The style that comes or emanates from black and brown culture, that is what urban meant in its origin. But much like the N-word, like over time, it kind of morphs because our vocabulary changes, our diction changes, maybe not our diction, but our vocabulary changes around what this particular thing means. And that leads us to Derek's point. It's like it's more than black and brown culture at this point. But I kind of like what Dave said. It's like the epitome of urban ministry is FUBU. It's for us, by us. Like it's creating these structures that work for us. They're not cookie cutter where they fit everybody. They're specific because they're going directly towards us, which kind of bounces us back to the origin of the word, right? Like us saying like, yo, this is specifically by this people, for this people. It's almost like when my parents was growing up, they had race music, what they call race music, right? So like race music was for black people. Like that was their way of saying this is Negro music. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like I feel like now in some circles, people use the word urban in a positive way. They're saying for us, by us, like Dave was saying, but in a negative way, they're saying urban because they're like, yo, this is urban. We can't touch it because it's not us. It's them.
But so like mid-90s artists, hip hop artists were fighting to remove even the term of urban, because it was like, oh, y'all gave us this one lane to run in, but we're in every other lane. We in jazz, we in soul. I mean, we should be able to be qualified to be in all of these other spaces, but y'all are limiting us to urban. That's why there was a big fight in I want to say mid-90s. I could be wrong on that one, but there was a fight for some of the newer artists as they were coming out. Was like, yo, don't put me in this urban box. Like I have more to offer. As an African American, I have more to offer, and I think I'm not going to segue us there, but essentially, it's like, yo, we have more to offer than just being black and making music for a small population.
Well, that's where I would say I think we need more language to describe what we do, because there's an image that's conjured up. You know what I mean? Because urban is supposed to describe space. It's not to describe people. You just got it associated with people. So it's the same as rural. You know, there's no such thing as rural people. Rural is a type of space. You know what I'm saying? Or suburban is a type of space. But then it gets attached to a person that lives in that context. But then when we look at black and brown people, you know, Dave mentioned Puerto Rico. That's an island. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a different context, but we keep thinking project buildings in New York City in the 70s, 80s, or 90s or whatever. And I'm going, oh, well, I need something else, because what would happen with us doing urban ministry, quote unquote, is you not really doing urban ministry if it didn't look like New York City or Chicago or, you know, LA. And I'm going, but I am. It's just, it doesn't have that same, it doesn't look like that, but we have the same issues. And so that's why I'm like, what back to what Trevor's saying, we get pigeonholed into, and then I'll go even a step further. If you do urban ministry, the underlying assumption is all you do is compassion ministry, immersive ministry. You know what I'm saying? So you working with homeless people, you giving out this or that. You know what I'm saying? You're not building something that's going to be scalable and have impact multiple cultures and go, wherever it wants to go. This is a neighborhood centric, poor person's church. And so what would happen for us is people would just go, yeah, that's not for us because we're not in that situation. We're not urban. But we're going, no, you're of the same culture and tribe, you know what I'm saying, as us, but you only see us as, oh, y'all just gonna y'all gonna do basketball camps.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but that might be something we do, but that's not all we do,
So Charlie, like, and clarify this for me because I'm with you 100%, but there's this other part of me that I feel like all of us can say, yo, a lot of our churches are neighborhood centric, poor people, compassion ministry. Like we do possess all those things. And I know you're not trying to you're not trying to say like there is no category for that. I think, what you're saying is like, it's that plus, right? Like it's that and other things, right?
I think we need a new category because it's still it's tied to the space. But I'm saying, man, we are a global culture. So why put us in that box of saying, yo, it's just gotta look like this, it's gotta feel like this, it's gotta we always talked about going from the block to the boardroom and then back to the block, So we have that fluidity culturally, but when people engage with us ministerially, it's like, no, y'all are just on the block. Now we prize that. Now that's we take ownership of that, but we're expanded beyond that. So that's why I say we need a broader, back to the musical issue, we need a broader category that can rightly identify us. You know what I'm saying? Because if we put it in genres, we go pop music, but there's all kinds of subgenres with underneath pop music.
Right.
You
Michael
know what
Jackson.
I'm saying?
Michael Jackson is pop, but Britney Spears is also pop.
Right. And there's no beef about it. There's not tension. That's like, oh yeah, I get it. You know what I'm saying? But for us, oh, you black, that must mean y'all, I got a couple of dollars, we can give y'all some canned goods and y'all can help the little kids. And I'm like, whoa, what about coming to us to get counseling and therapy? What about coming to us to get theological training? What about coming to us to get marital help and, financial training for your family,
Right.
Like what about those aspects that we really are passionate about? But you see the one, the compassion and mercy side, which we would say every church is supposed to have that as a aspect of their, institution. Yeah, and so why is it that that's our main thing or only thing?
What's interesting to me, man, even as you're talking, is because I'm hearing two different things, even from you right now, Charlie. And I think this is the reality of the world that we kind of live in, because hip hop and the urban culture, if we define it in the category of hip hop or what have you, we're not boxed in, Like that's for the birds, and that's an old deal. We global, baby. We don't gotta try to be global. You know what I'm saying? We that's not a thing. We are global. We haven't been constrained to the ghetto. That, you know what I mean? We have expanded now. That's been a reality for a long time. Something I take a lot of pride in, you know what I'm saying? Like we have expanded and we've made it to a lot of places, but it seems as if, especially in the ministerial spaces, that reality hasn't been honored in our spaces, right? Like it's still the assumption is still like y'all can't go nowhere with this. It's tied to the particular ghettos, but the reality is that it's not. And so I think I agree that there has to be new categories and things like that. But on the other hand, I'm like, yo, nah, y'all just need to put some respect on our name, dog. Like we out here, you know what I'm saying? And we've been working, and we have institutions, and we've got you know, and Jigga said, what he said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. How you say it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's real life for us. And
For,
I go back and forth saying like, yo, yeah, I think we need some new categories, but on the same token, like, man, listen, like, y'all just need to respect it.
Right.
Because there's more in it than race and mercy.
Right.
Those are two things when we get invited to. You know what I mean? Like, hey, yo, can you speak on race? Or yo, can you speak on mercy ministry? I mean, outreach and stuff like that. No, hey, listen, all of the same things that you have going on in your church, I got going on in my. We got the same theological trainings. We got this like church like I got the counseling, got the and everything in between. So that's where it moves from and I do like the location piece. Like, yo, you know what I mean? Urban has been a geographical setting.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I love Dave's point just now because and Jay, you jump in this, Jay, because me and you've been around a minute. Just in terms of the space of trying to figure out what urban and church and planting actually look like, because like at the inception of it, like like I remember being around and jokers be like, "Are y'all going to be a hip hop church?" You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, like, nah, I don't know. I don't think so. Like, we just try to be a church. And to Charlie's point, like sometimes, and it's part of what I was saying earlier, like at times, like the relegation of us to just this urban is almost insinuating like one or two things. Whereas, like, we got our man Jay Harris, like, is skateboarding and like doing NFTs and like all this other stuff that's like expanding and is global, right? And the reach of it is far deeper than what we could have even imagined, Jay. Like, I mean, look, bro, like early 2000s when it was mixing and jokers was trying to figure out what does this like church urban thing look like. Nobody knew. Was it a hip hop church? Like, what were we gonna be? Like, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I think I add on to it, man. Like I you know, I think it's a weird tension to try to live in between these two things, right? And you know, it's crazy because we're very much global, but I think for a lot of us, we are somewhat constricting into this thing where we're focusing on the neighborhood. Even though we have global talents, skills, and everything else, like we are trying to lavish it like right on the block that we're in. You know, like Byron, you said something. I just said it in a conversation earlier with somebody, and I repeated it a couple times since I heard you say it. But when I came to see you in Daytona, we was on your block, and you was talking about a job offer you got from somewhere else. But you made the statement. You was like, "Yo, if I leave this block, I don't know who else is coming to bring the gospel here." Like it's a wasteland. I was telling somebody earlier. I said, I feel like I'm like the ministry right now for me is almost a ministry of bewilderment. Like, I don't even know exactly what to do, but I know God has called me to this place. Like I'm looking, there's no name brand businesses on this block. Ministries are shutting down left and right. I can't even find a building that's not about to crumble down to even do church in. So we doing church in the park, church at houses, but still tied to a particular neighborhood. And I'm like, I'm bewildered at the moment, but bewildered, so be it. It is what it is, because we're going to pray and we're going to keep calling on Jesus' name and preaching Jesus until he lay the whole thing down. But one thing we know to do is keep preaching the gospel. And so it's this weird tension. And then it's like, there's this big old church out here. And I'm like, I could come rock with y'all. I could get checks with y'all, but you don't care about this block I'm on. You don't care. Like, it's like that Nehemiah thing. It's like, yo, I can go sit in the palace, but homie, my heart is grieving because the walls knocked down.
Talk.
Back with my people or whatever and stuff. And like, that's what I love about y'all, because, you know, Byron, that's what I heard when you said that, and it bugged me out because my man, he just said it. He was just like, bro, he said, yo, I stand on the block and I look at the neighborhood and I'm like, I just think about what God could do here. And I'm like, homie, there ain't nothing on that corner but dilapidated buildings. Be like, but like, but that's what God is doing. I'm like, yo, homie, I stand on it too. That's I'm like, you get what I'm coming? I'm like, I be doing that too. I'm like, I don't know if we freaking crazy, but this the post God then gave us, right?
Word.
That's that concrete. That's our thing or whatever and stuff or whatnot. And a lot of the, you know, broader kind of church or some of the people we done rub elbows with, they done made us feel like we crazy for feeling that way. And that don't work for us. Not for Maroon Tang it don't. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yo,
one of the things that I remember growing up hearing my pastor say was, the light that shines the farthest shines the brightest at home. And that was for me, that was that neighborhood responsibility. Like, you can travel wherever you want to go. The influence can go wherever. But if you track back to where that influence comes from, I want there to be a potent experience of that when you get back to the source of that light. You know what I'm saying? And so for us, I mean, it starts on a corner, or it starts on a block, or it starts in a neighborhood, but then that thing resonates out. And it feels like sometimes it don't get past that, but we know as we interact with one another, we all across the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, we speak the same language. We laugh at the same, there's a cultural bond that has bonded us together. Yeah. That's, you know what I mean? That's way bigger than us. I would say that's the kingdom of God, but it's also hip hop culture. And it's also the neighborhoods we come from. But like you said, that light that shines the farthest, man, I want it to shine the brightest right here with my folks in this particular neighborhood. And that it goes out from there.
Yeah. The RZA has spoken.
Hey, man, fellas, I mean, I feel like it's good. I feel like we can go hours and hours talking about this. And what people probably don't know is we do go hours and hours and talk about this. Me and Jay spent hours together, me and Charlie, Trey, all of us have spent time talking about these things. And we'll continue to spend time talking about these things because we love where we are. I think that's the most important thing about all of us is we love exactly where we are. But like Charlie, I think you wanting to push us to have new language around this matters. It matters a lot because, man, we started talking about urban church, but I feel like all of our references do fit the idea of hip hop. You know, like as much as like hip hop is so many things this day, at this very moment and in the future. But at the end of the day, hip hop started in a borough in New York. It started, like they say, hip hop started out in the park. Like, and it's still, it can be Kanye West, it could be, you know, white kids or Asian kids in Japan breakdancing, but it's still dudes in the neighborhood freestyling on the corner, breakdancing and graffiti art putting on the side of the building, right? Like it's both and. I feel like what we're doing is very much that. Like what Derek said, man, we could do, like, the possibilities are endless, right? Like, so we're gonna see, you know, in Jesus' name, we're gonna see missionaries coming from our churches and urban environments going across the world to serve people. Yeah. But at the same time, we're gonna be handing out groceries because that's who we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that hip hop thing that you are coining is the most appropriate way for us to talk about what we're doing. And I think all six of us have talked about that tonight, man. We've the Wu-Tang references, the Jay-Z references, even the thought about Jay-Z saying like, yo, I came from Marcy Projects and I brought the Barclays to my hood. Like that is kind of what we're trying to do. It's like, yo, we grew up in these environments, we've gone out, we've seen some other stuff, and yet our heart beats for the place where we were raised, or the place where we feel most comfortable, or the place where, you know, we have the most connection with people on the block. So, man, I love that hip hop language. I love the discussion about urban church. Man, any last thoughts? Any last thoughts about urban church, hip hop church, the new urban church plant, any of that?
I got something. I got something real quick. You know, I want to add on to something because, like, when we talk about just the hip hop language or whatever and stuff, like, you know, Charlie's been doing some really dope videos or whatever, right? And for, you know, people who got ears to hear or whatever, like, he's dropping some ill science, like, with what he's using you know, all kind of videos or whatever. Like I was talking to my son earlier today. I was talking about my 15-year-old son about business earlier. And then later on, I found a video from Jay-Z, and where Jay-Z's partner in the bar, you know, the bar with the Nets and all that, was talking about, you know, business and how he came about dealing with Jay-Z and everything else. I was showing my son and using it as a way to, you know, encourage him to get an education. And, you know what I'm saying? Not come up with quick ideas, whatever. So like, he understands the language of hip hop. You get where I'm coming from? And, you know, then we seen this week, Charlie, whatever, we had somebody put a little friction against him because they were mad about his video. And they're like, oh, you know, somebody said something slick like, yeah, you got to watch out. You know, you're going to lead people astray with all that. I'm like, yo, first of all, people need to be coddled. People got a brain to think themselves or whatever, right? Like anybody who's got any kind of intellectual band or whatever, yo, he's clearly not advocating for the message of the artist. The artist is saying something particular. And the reason I'm making this point is because the reason we didn't have to kind of cut off from different denominations, different organizations doing different church planning networks is because none of them have any data for the block. Right. You ain't got no data. So how are you going to tell me how I need to actually communicate? I may not be communicating perfectly, but by grace, I'm sure as heck free to go find out the best way and go with my gut and let the Holy Spirit lead me, right? Word. But like, my son understands hip hop. And sometimes as a dad, I can't even get to him, but I could put it in that language and that joint hit him right in the head. Like, told me tonight, say, yo, son, Dad, I'm gonna clean my stuff up or whatever, get on my grades and everything else. I'm like, son, I'm just trying to, you know, if you don't do what you need to do now, you get caught later. I'm trying to put you in the game. But like when I put it in hip hop, he got it. We got to put the gospel in this thing too, or whatever and stuff, whatnot. You understand what I'm saying? And not be standing next to people that try to treat us like heretics because they don't understand. It goes back to the thing we said earlier. Homie, how you going to tell me about me and you ain't me? How you going to tell me about this block? You ain't been on this block. How you going to dehumanize me? Like I ain't got enough, you know what I'm saying, intellect to actually do what I think is best for my family, people that look like me. You understand what I'm saying? And so that's why I hang with y'all. Y'all thuggish. Y'all be wanting to start some mess. So.
Oh God. And listen, yo, I think hip hop has proven. That we're as creative as anybody, that we're as intelligent as anybody, and that we can build as good as anybody. And so for me, I think there's a reality to like, yo, yeah, listen, because the fact of the matter is them folk over there, they don't question our intelligence. I used to think they used to question our intelligence. I used to think that they just didn't see the talent and the gifting in us. But that ain't the truth, yo, because listen, if you ask Charlie Mitchell right now how often he gets called by them folk to speak to them on something or whatever, it's often. I think all of us could say on here. And when I say them folk right now, I'm just speaking about non-urban folk or what have you. They're calling us for consulting. They're calling us for church planting expertise. They're calling us, how do I deal with this issue? They're calling us, how do I use these resources and stretch them out? They're calling us for all type of things, but they're not doing those. They're not paying us and they're not putting on their platforms.
No, sir.
That's what's happening. They calling us for this stuff and they respect it in that sense, right? But they don't respect our person enough to invest or to give us the rightful place that we deserve. And so my thing is that everything we're talking about, it translates to nickels and dimes. It translates to money, the dollars, to resources. And as we seek to build our community, as we seek to build the urban church for whatever, you know what I mean, whatever that's worth and whatever it is that we're talking about, we need to come into a place where we begin to say like, hey, you can't just keep trying to pimp us out. Number one, we're not going to shut up. You've already you've already seen that. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to shut up. And not only are we not going to shut up, but we're coming together. We on this Megatron ministry. And at some point, if you don't respect us, we're going to have to stop giving you what we got. And we just going to do it amongst ourselves. And we're going to build this up. Anyway, a lot of thoughts.
Byron, shut it down, Byron. Byron, shut it down.
David was about to drive us off the cliff. real quick, Jay, you mentioned something, man, and I appreciate it, and I like the word urban as it pertains to a cultural demographic.
Sure.
But like you said about your son, bro, our communities are steeped in urban culture day in, day out, every single way they turn. Period. And us being raised in that same urban culture, all we're doing is Acts 17 when Paul went to the Areopagus and told them jokers,
Yes, sir.
it's
Yes, sir.
in him do I live, breathe, and dwell and have my being. That
Ah.
wasn't a God, that was one of their idols. So all we're doing is recommunicating the same things that they are already attached with,
Right.
that they already understand and can see, and
Come on,
attaching
Trev.
that with the truth of the gospel. So,
Yes, sir.
Come on, Trev.
man, miss me with that.
Yeah. Shut it down, Byron. Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Hey, look, man, y'all boys is spitting.
Maroon Tang.
Maroon tag.
I love it. 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 I think ultimately, man, I think we have enough to chew on. I think a lot of people have enough to chew on. And just know this, just like hip hop culture has gone across the world, we just saw Travis Scott and Kanye and all of them in Paris for Fashion Week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we just saw that, like, from a culture that's 40 years old, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? So I think in the same way, you're going to see these urban churches, these leaders that you're looking at right now, you're going to see the impact of these leaders for 40, 50, 60 years. And it's going to be other people come out of this movement of people listening to the voices of the block and yet pointing people to the ends of the earth. So look, I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's on the call right now. Charlie Mitchell and Trevor Chan, they're both in Baltimore. If y'all are in Baltimore, stop by, check them out, Epiphany Baltimore. My man Dave Rosa is down in Hollywood, Cruciform Church. So if you're in South Florida, you're in Broward County, go check my man out. Derek Parsons in Wilmington, Delaware, Epiphany Church Wilmington. Check them out if you're up that way. And my man Jay Harris, the Ville Church, some of the best branding, the best all kinds of stuff, best gospel preaching too, in Jacksonville, Florida. So check him out as well. We're gonna have links to all of that stuff wherever we post this video. Y'all check
and
in with
Identity Church, you heard? Check them out too.
Identity Church.
Daytona, baby.
Daytona, man.
Daytona.
Look,
love Daytona, man. Y'all check out Identity Church as well. We're gonna have links to every single church and pastor and wherever we post this. But y'all stay tuned in with us because we got plenty of content. We got so much to talk about. And look, we're gonna be stepping on people's necks as we put some of this stuff out too. So y'all get ready for it.
Yes,
Any
sir.
last words, fellas?
No. Shut it down,
All right.
man. Shut it down. Yeah.
All right.
Stop the recording.
I'll let y'all
Stop the recording.